I don't think testing your relationship is a bad thing. Everyone says communication is important, right? Everyone says you should know where you stand in your relationship. Everyone says clarity is healthy. So when I decided to test both my husband and my ex-boyfriend on the same night, I wasn't being manipulative. I was being thorough. I was being smart. I was gathering information to make an informed decision about my future. That's not playing games. That's being strategic. The fact that they both figured out what I was doing and decided to compare notes instead of competing for me, that's not my fault. That's them choosing solidarity over fighting for what they wanted. That's them giving up instead of proving their love. And somehow I'm the villain for wanting to see who would pass my test, for wanting to know who really valued me, for wanting proof instead of just empty words. But let me explain what actually happened, because everyone who hears this story gets it wrong. Everyone jumps to conclusions without understanding the context, without understanding that I was stuck between two men and genuinely didn't know which one to choose. I was just trying to make the best decision, and they both punished me for it. Here's the situation I was in. I'd been married to Chris for 4 years. Good marriage on paper, stable, comfortable. He was a good provider, a good partner, everything you're supposed to want in a husband. But there was no spark anymore, no excitement, no passion. We'd become comfortable to the point of boring, predictable to the point of dead. We had a routine, a schedule, a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt empty from the inside. And then my ex-boyfriend Jake came back into my life. We'd dated for 2 years before Chris. Intense, passionate relationship that burned hot and fast. The kind where you can't keep your hands off each other, where every conversation is deep and meaningful, where you feel like you found your soulmate, until it all fell apart when Jake got a job offer across the country. It was too good to turn down. Career-defining opportunity. And neither of us wanted to do long distance. We were young. We wanted to live our lives. We didn't want to be tied down by phone calls and visits and the constant ache of missing each other. So we broke up, painfully, tearfully. Both of us saying we'd stay friends but knowing we wouldn't. Both of us promising we'd never forget each other but knowing we'd try. And we did try. We lost touch. Stopped following each other on social media, deleted old messages, moved on with our lives. I met Chris a year later, stable, reliable. The opposite of the intensity I'd had with Jake. It felt mature, adult, like I was finally making smart choices instead of emotional ones. And I was happy, or at least I thought I was. Chris was good to me. We built a nice life together, got married, settled into comfortable routines. I barely thought about Jake, maybe occasionally when a song would come on that reminded me of him. Maybe when I'd see couples who had that intensity Chris and I lacked. But mostly, he was just a memory, a chapter I'd closed. Until 6 months ago when he moved back to the city and reached out. Hey, long time. I'm back in town, took a position at Morrison Tech. Would love to catch up. Coffee? My heart jumped when I saw the message. That immediate physical reaction that told me the feelings weren't as dead as I'd thought. I stared at the message for an hour, debating, knowing I should say no, knowing I was married, knowing nothing good could come from reconnecting with an ex who still made my heart race. But I was curious. I wanted to see him. I wanted to know if the chemistry was still there, or if it had just been nostalgia and youth. I wanted to see who he'd become. I wanted to show him who I'd become. I wanted to prove to myself that I'd moved on, that I was happily married, that I'd made the right choice. So I said yes. Coffee sounds great. When works for you? We met at a cafe downtown. Neutral territory. Public place. Just coffee. Nothing dangerous about coffee with an old friend, except it was dangerous. From the moment I saw him, I knew it was dangerous. He looked good. Better than I remembered. He'd matured. filled out, had this confidence about him that he didn't have when we were younger. Success looked good on him, and the chemistry was instant, like no time had passed, like we'd just been talking yesterday. We talked for 3 hours, about his time away, about my marriage, about our careers, about what we'd both learned, about who we'd become, and it felt right, easy, natural, like coming home. "I miss this," Jake said as we were leaving. "I missed you. I know that's probably not appropriate to say since you're married, but it's true. I miss talking to you. I missed the way you see the world. I missed us." "I missed you too," I admitted, because I'd missed the intensity, the passion, the feeling of being truly seen and understood. "Can we do this again? Just as friends catching up?" I knew it was a bad idea. I knew just as friends was never just as friends with an ex. I knew I should say no and go home to my husband and forget this ever happened. But I said yes. And that coffee turned into weekly coffees, which turned into lunches, which turned into dinners, which turned into long conversations that went way beyond appropriate. We didn't kiss, didn't touch, didn't do anything physical, but we were having an emotional affair, the kind that's arguably worse than a physical one, the kind where you're sharing your heart and your thoughts and your secrets with someone who isn't your spouse. I was telling Jake things I didn't tell Chris, complaining about my marriage, opening up about my unhappiness, sharing my dreams and fears and desires, and Jake was listening, really listening, making me feel valued and understood and special. "You're not happy," he said one night over dinner. "I'm fine. I'm married. I'm stable. That's what adult happiness looks like." "That's bullshit. You're settling. You're comfortable. But you're not happy. Not really. Not the way you were when we were together." We were kids then. That kind of intensity doesn't last. Maybe it does. Maybe you just convinced yourself it doesn't because you gave up on it. I didn't give up on it. You moved away. We both agreed. I was an idiot. I chose career over you. Biggest mistake of my life. And now you're married and I missed my chance. Jake, unless I didn't, unless you're not really happy, unless there's still a chance for us. And that's when everything shifted, when it stopped being friendly catch-ups and started being something more, when we both acknowledged that this wasn't innocent, that we were building towards something, that we were both considering the possibility of an us again. I didn't tell Chris about Jake. I told myself it was because there was nothing to tell. We were just friends, just catching up. Nothing inappropriate was happening, but I was lying. To Chris, to myself, to Jake when I told him I wasn't sure what I wanted, because I knew what I wanted. I wanted both of them. I wanted the security of Chris and the passion of Jake. I wanted the life I'd built and the life I'd walked away from. I wanted to have everything. And I convinced myself I deserved to have everything. That I deserved to explore my options. That I deserved to make the best choice for my future. I just needed to figure out which choice was best. Which man loved me more? Which relationship was worth keeping? And that's when I decided I needed to test them. To create a situation that would force them both to show me who they really were. To prove which love was real. I needed to know which relationship was real. Which one was worth keeping. Which man really loved me more. So I devised a test. Not just any test. A carefully designed experiment that would reveal the truth. That would give me objective data instead of just feelings and confusion. I spent weeks thinking about it, planning it, making sure every variable was controlled, making sure the test would give me meaningful results. Because here's what I realized. Words are cheap. Both Chris and Jake said they loved me. Both of them made promises. Both of them acted like I was important. But actions reveal truth. Behavior reveals character. And I needed to see their behavior under pressure. Needed to see who would fight harder. Who would prove their love when tested. That's not manipulative. That's scientific. That's rational. That's smart. Everyone tests potential partners, right? Everyone observes behavior and makes judgments. Everyone evaluates compatibility. I was just being more methodical about it, more intentional, more thorough. Instead of passively waiting to see how they'd act, I created a situation that would force them to show me. That would reveal their true feelings in a controlled environment, like a scientist running an experiment, like a researcher gathering data, like someone making an important life decision based on evidence rather than emotion. That's what I told myself. That's how I justified what I was planning. I convinced myself this was the smart thing to do, the mature thing, the responsible thing, because how else was I supposed to choose? How else was I supposed to know who really loved me more? Chris had history with me, 4 years of marriage, shared experiences, a life we'd built together. But he'd also become complacent, comfortable. He'd stopped trying to win me, stopped making me feel special, stopped treating me like I was worth fighting for. Jake had passion, intensity, that electric chemistry that made me feel alive. But he also represented risk, unknown, the possibility that the intensity would fade once we actually tried to build a real life together. I needed to know which was more important, security or passion, comfort or excitement, the man who had me or the man who wanted me. And the only way to know was to test them both, to see who would rise to the challenge, to see who wanted me enough to prove it. So I designed the perfect test, equal conditions, same night, same type of challenge, objective measurement of their responses. I would force both of them to demonstrate their commitment, to show me through their actions, not their words, how much they valued me. And then I would have the data I needed, the evidence, the proof of who really loved me more. It made perfect sense. It was logical. It was the right thing to do. At least, that's what I believed at the time. That's what I convinced myself as I planned every detail, as I crafted the messages, as I set the trap. I told myself I was being smart, being thorough, being responsible about a major life decision. I told myself this was necessary, that I had no other choice, that I couldn't possibly make this decision without testing them first. I told myself they'd understand, that if they really loved me, they'd appreciate that I needed proof, that they'd be willing to demonstrate their commitment. I told myself a lot of things, and I believed all of them, until everything fell apart, and I realized I'd been lying to myself the entire time. Here's what I planned. I would tell Chris I needed him to meet me for an important conversation, somewhere public, a restaurant we'd never been to before. I'd tell him I was questioning our marriage, that I needed him to convince me it was worth saving, that I needed him to fight for us. And I would tell Jake the same thing. Different restaurant, same neighborhood, same time. Tell him I was considering leaving my husband for him, that I needed him to prove he was serious, that I needed him to show me he was worth the upheaval of divorce. I'd give them both the same test. Prove your love. Show me why I should choose you. Convince me you're worth it. And then I'd evaluate their responses, see who fought harder, who was more convincing, who really wanted me more. The one who passed the test would be the one I chose. It was perfect, clean, objective, a way to make an impossible decision using observable data rather than just feelings. I spent a week planning it, choosing the restaurants, similar types, same price range, equal distance from my house, crafting the messages to both of them, same tone, same urgency, same emotional weight. Everything had to be equal. Everything had to be controlled. This was a scientific experiment, and I needed to eliminate variables. On Thursday, I texted Chris. "We need to talk, something important. Can you meet me at Rossi's tomorrow at 7? It's about us." He responded immediately. "Is everything okay? You're scaring me. Just meet me there, please." "Of course, I'll be there." Then I texted Jake. "I've made a decision about us. I need to see you. Can you meet me at the Blue Door tomorrow at 7? It's important. His response, finally, I've been waiting for this. I'll be there. Perfect. Both of them thought they were meeting me for a serious, relationship-defining conversation. Both of them would be prepared. Both of them would bring their A game. And I would compare their performances and make my choice. Friday came. I spent the day preparing. Not physically preparing. I wouldn't be at either restaurant. This test required observation from a distance. I recruited my friend Maya to be my eyes and ears. Told her I was testing my husband and my ex-boyfriend. Told her I needed her to go to both restaurants, observe their behavior, take notes, report back. She was hesitant. This seems manipulative. It's not manipulative. It's information gathering. I need to know who really loves me. This is the only way to find out. By tricking them both, by testing them, there's a difference. She agreed eventually, probably because she was curious about the drama, probably because she thought I was crazy and wanted to see how it played out. I gave her detailed instructions, times to arrive at each restaurant, what to look for, how to document their reactions. And I gave her the final piece of the puzzle, a note to deliver to each of them after they'd been waiting for 20 minutes. The note said, I'm testing you. I need to see if you're willing to fight for me. I need to see if you'll stay and wait, or if you'll give up and leave. Your choice will tell me everything I need to know about how much you really love me. I'll be watching. The test was simple. Would they stay and wait? Would they be angry about the test? Would they try to call me? How long would they wait before giving up? Their responses to this challenge would tell me everything. Who was more patient? Who was more committed? Who really loved me enough to tolerate being tested? It was brilliant. It was foolproof. Or so I thought. At 6:45, Maya headed to the first restaurant, Rossi's, where Chris was meeting me. I stayed home, phone in hand, waiting for her updates. At 7:05, she texted, He's here, sitting at a table, looks nervous, keeps checking his phone. Good, he was taking this seriously. At 7:15, still here, ordered a water, looks worried, asked the waiter if anyone had asked for him. Perfect, he was invested, concerned, showing signs of caring. At 7:25, I'm delivering the note now. I waited, heart pounding. This was the critical moment. How would he react to being tested? At 7:30, he read the note, looks confused, then angry. He's calling you. My phone rang. Chris. I didn't answer. That was part of the test. He needed to make the choice without my input, needed to decide on his own whether I was worth waiting for. Maya texted again. He's leaving money on the table. He's getting up. He's leaving. He's walking out. What? No, he was supposed to stay. He was supposed to prove he'd wait for me. He was supposed to pass the test. I called Maya. He left? Already? Yes. He looked pissed, threw some cash down and walked out. Did he say anything? Not to me, but he was muttering to himself. Looked like he was really upset. He failed. He gave up. He chose his pride over fighting for me. That told me everything I needed to know about Chris. Okay, I said. Go to the Blue Door. Check on Jake. Let me know how he does. Maybe Jake would do better. Maybe Jake would prove he was worth choosing. At 7:40, Maya arrived at the Blue Door. Jake's here, also looks nervous, also checking his phone. At least both of them took this seriously. At least both of them showed up. At 7:50. He's getting impatient, asking the hostess if she's seen you. She said no. At 8, I'm giving him the note. Again I waited, holding my breath, hoping Jake would respond better than Chris, hoping he'd prove he was different. At 8:05, he's reading it. Looks, I can't tell, he's sitting there staring at the note, not moving. Good, he was processing, thinking, not reacting impulsively like Chris. At 8:10, he's still sitting there, He hasn't called you. He's just thinking. Better. He was considering his options, weighing the test, taking it seriously. At 8:15. Wait, something's happening. A guy just walked in and went straight to Jake's table. What? Who would? My stomach dropped. It's Chris. Your husband just walked into the restaurant and sat down at Jake's table. No. No. This wasn't supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to meet. They weren't supposed to know about each other. What are they doing? I typed frantically. They're talking. They both have the same note. Chris is showing Jake something on his phone. Oh my God, they're comparing notes. They're figuring out what you did. This was bad. This was very bad. Are they angry? They look calm, like they're having a normal conversation. This is weird. They should be fighting or something. They should be competing. They should be confronting each other. They should be proving who wanted me more. But instead, they were talking, calmly, like they were on the same team. At 8:25, they're still talking. They both seem, I don't know, not angry at each other. They keep looking at the note, then at each other, then shaking their heads. At 8:35, they're getting up. They're leaving together. They're walking out of the restaurant side by side. They're laughing? I think they're laughing. Laughing. They were laughing. About me. About my test. About the situation I'd created. They were bonding. Over me. They were choosing solidarity over competition. This was not how this was supposed to go. Maya called me. I don't know what just happened, but your test completely backfired. They're both leaving together. They look like they're friends now. I think you might want to prepare for some calls. She was right. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Chris, I answered, trying to sound calm. Hey, don't. His voice was cold, calm, controlled, the kind of calm that's more terrifying than yelling. Don't say anything, just listen. Chris, I can explain. I said don't. I'm with Jake right now. Your ex-boyfriend, the guy you've apparently been seeing for months, the guy you arranged to meet on the same night you arranged to meet me, the guy you were testing the same way you were testing me. Silence. My mouth went dry. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. We compared notes, Chris continued, his voice eerily steady. The texts you sent us, the notes your friend delivered, the timing, the restaurants. Did you know they're on the same block? We walked past each other when I was leaving Rossi's, saw each other, recognized each other from the photos you showed us over the years, started talking, realized what you'd done. I was trying to make a decision, by manipulating us, by lying to us, by treating us like we're contestants in some sick game show where you're the prize. Do you have any idea how fucked up that is? I needed to know who really loved me. I needed to see who would fight for me. Then you should have asked. His voice rose for the first time. You should have talked to me about our marriage. You should have told me you were unhappy. You should have told Jake you were married. You should have been honest instead of setting up some elaborate psychological experiment where we both lose because the game itself is rigged. I could hear Jake's voice in the background. Is she seriously trying to defend this? Yeah, Chris said. She is. Because apparently she thinks this is acceptable human behavior. Chris, please, let me explain properly. I was stuck between both of you. I didn't know how to choose. This seemed like the best way to get clarity. Clarity? His laugh was bitter. You want clarity. Here's some clarity. Jake and I spent the last hour comparing notes. About you. About what you've been doing. About the lies you told both of us. About how you've been playing us against each other, without us even knowing we were in competition. It wasn't a competition. It absolutely was. You set up parallel tests, gave us identical notes, watched to see which of us would perform better for you. That's literally a competition. And you know what we realized during that conversation? We both deserve better than someone who would do this. You can't just decide that. You can't just team up against me. We're not teaming up against you. We're just both making the same decision independently. The decision to walk away from someone who treats people like this. Someone who lies and manipulates and tests the people who love her. Chris, you're my husband. You can't just leave. We took vows. You broke those vows when you started seeing Jake. When you started lying to me. When you set up this test. You broke them in every way possible. I'm just making it official. But I love you. No, you don't, Jake's voice cut in. Chris must have put me on speaker. You don't love either of us. You love the attention. You love having options. You love the power of making us compete. But you don't actually love us as people. You love what we represent, what we provide, how we make you feel. That's not true. I do love you, both of you. That's why this was so hard. That's why I needed the test. If you loved us, Chris said, his voice quiet again, you would have respected us enough to be honest. You would have talked to me about our marriage instead of cheating. You would have told Jake you were married instead of lying. You would have made a decision like an adult instead of setting up this manipulative charade. I was trying to make the best decision. No, Jake said. You were trying to avoid making any decision. You wanted to keep both of us. Keep your stable marriage and your exciting affair. And when you realized you couldn't, you set up a test that was designed to fail so you could blame us for not loving you enough instead of accepting responsibility for your own choices. That's not... It is, Chris interrupted, and we're done. Both of us. I'm filing for divorce Monday morning. Jake and I already exchanged numbers. He's going to be my witness, going to testify about your affair, about the lies, about this whole sick setup. You want to know who loves you more? Neither of us. Not anymore. We both choose ourselves over whatever game you're playing. Chris, please. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. I'll be back tomorrow to pack my things. Don't try to stop me. Don't try to convince me to stay. Don't send me messages about how you're sorry or you didn't mean it or you'll change. It's over. We're over. This marriage is done. And I'm blocking your number, Jake added, his voice hard, and your email, and your social media. I don't want to hear from you ever again. I don't want your apologies or your explanations or your justifications. I just want you out of my life completely. Wait, both of you can't just... But the line went dead. They'd hung up, together, both of them making the same choice at the same time, united in their decision to leave me. I tried calling back immediately. Chris's phone went straight to voicemail. He'd already blocked me. Jake's number showed as disconnected, already blocked there too. I tried texting. The messages to Chris showed as delivered but not read. The messages to Jake failed to send. They'd both cut me off, completely, in the span of one phone call. I'd lost both of them, in one night, because of one test, because I'd wanted proof of their love, and they'd given me proof of my own toxicity instead. That was 4 months ago. Chris filed for divorce immediately. Jake testified in the proceedings about our affair, about how I'd lied to him about being married, about the test, about everything. The divorce was brutal. Chris got almost everything. The house, most of our savings, everything we'd built together. The judge was not sympathetic to someone who'd been having an affair and then orchestrated an elaborate manipulation of both partners. I'm living in a small apartment now, working the same job, but everyone knows what happened. The story spread, through mutual friends, through social media, through the grapevine of people who love to gossip about other people's failures. I'm known as the woman who tested her husband and her boyfriend and lost them both. The woman who set up an elaborate scheme that backfired spectacularly. The woman who got exactly what she deserved. I haven't talked to either Chris or Jake since that phone call. Chris blocked me everywhere after the divorce was finalized. Jake never unblocked me. They both moved on with their lives, and apparently they stayed friends. Maya told me she saw them having coffee together last month, laughing, getting along, bonded by their shared experience of being manipulated by me. I created that friendship. I brought them together. By trying to make them compete, I made them allies. People tell me I got what I deserved, that I was manipulative, that I was playing games, that I treated two human beings like they were competing in some reality show for my affection. And maybe they're right, but I don't understand why testing someone is such a terrible thing. Relationships are important, life-changing. Shouldn't you make sure you're choosing the right person? Shouldn't you have data? Shouldn't you test compatibility and commitment and love? Everyone says communication is important. But actions speak louder than words, right? So testing actions makes sense. Testing behavior makes sense. Testing whether someone will fight for you makes sense. Except it doesn't, because both of them failed my test. Or I failed by giving it. I'm not sure which. Chris didn't wait. He saw the note about being tested and he left. He chose his dignity over proving his love. Jake figured out what I was doing. He put the pieces together. And when Chris showed up, instead of competing, they compared notes and both decided I wasn't worth it. So the test didn't work. It didn't give me the information I needed. It just showed me that neither of them would tolerate being tested. Which means what? That they didn't love me enough? That I asked too much? That the test itself was flawed? I honestly don't know anymore. My therapist, because yes, I'm in therapy now, court-mandated as part of the divorce, says I have serious trust issues. She says I test people because I don't believe they'll stay without proving themselves constantly. That I create obstacles because I don't think I deserve love without earning it. She says the test was designed to fail. That I set impossible standards so I could blame them for not meeting them. That I sabotaged both relationships because I was afraid of actually choosing. She says I need to work on my self-worth, on believing I'm valuable without needing constant validation, on accepting love without testing it. She says a lot of things that make sense in her office but feel wrong everywhere else. We've had months of sessions now, twice a week, me sitting on her couch, her in her chair with her notepad, both of us going in circles about why I did what I did. Tell me about the test, she says for what feels like the 100th time. Walk me through your thinking when you decided to set it up. I needed information. I needed to know who loved me more. And you couldn't ask them directly. People lie. People say what you want to hear. Actions are more honest than words. So you created a situation where their actions would tell you something. What did you expect to learn? Who would fight harder? Who would stay? Who would prove they really wanted me? And what would that have told you? That they loved me, that I mattered, that I was worth fighting for. She writes something down. She's always writing things down. I wonder what she writes. Probably things like delusional and narcissistic and unable to accept responsibility. Here's what I'm hearing, she says carefully. You needed external validation of your worth. You couldn't just believe you were valuable. You needed them to prove it. You needed them to perform for you. You needed evidence. Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. But do you see how that places an impossible burden on them? How that makes love conditional on constant performance? How that turns a relationship into a perpetual audition? I don't think asking someone to prove they love you is unreasonable. Asking once, maybe. But you were testing constantly, weren't you? The whole affair with Jake was a test of Chris. The setup at the restaurants was a test of both of them. Your entire approach to relationships is one long test of whether people will stay despite your behavior. I wasn't. You were. And when they didn't stay, when they both chose to leave rather than continue being tested, you felt vindicated. You felt like they'd proven they didn't really love you, that you'd been right to test them, that they'd failed. She leans forward slightly. But here's what actually happened. You created a test that no healthy person could pass. You designed a scenario where the only winning move was to refuse to play. And that's what they did. They both looked at your test and said, "This is toxic, I'm not participating." And that was the healthy response. The correct response. The response that showed they had self-respect and boundaries. So I'm toxic. I didn't say that. I said the test was toxic. The behavior was toxic. You're a person who's learned toxic coping mechanisms, and you can unlearn them. But first, you have to accept that they were toxic in the first place. I just wanted to know who loved me. No, you wanted to create a situation where you could avoid making a choice, where you could blame them for leaving, instead of accepting that you destroyed both relationships through your own actions, where you could be the victim instead of the person who hurt them. I hate when she does this, when she sees through all my justifications and points out what I don't want to see. They gave up too easily, I say defensively. If they really loved me, they would have understood. They would have forgiven the test. They would have stayed. Would you? If someone you loved set up an elaborate manipulation to test you, would you stay? Or would you recognize that as a fundamental betrayal of trust and choose to protect yourself? I don't answer, because I know the answer. I would leave too. Anyone with self-respect would leave, but accepting that means accepting that I was wrong, that they were right, that I'm the problem, and I'm not ready to accept that yet. Not fully, not in the way she wants me to. Sometimes I see Chris's social media. He's dating someone new. She looks normal, probably not the type to set up elaborate psychological tests. They look happy. I don't know anything about Jake. He locked down everything before blocking me. But Maya mentioned he's seeing someone too, someone who's apparently honest and straightforward. Everything I wasn't. They both moved on, easily, like I was just a brief nightmare they both escaped from. And I'm here, alone, trying to figure out where I went wrong. The easy answer is, everywhere. I went wrong everywhere. I shouldn't have reconnected with Jake while married to Chris. I shouldn't have kept both relationships going without being honest. I shouldn't have created an elaborate test instead of just making a decision. I shouldn't have treated two people I claimed to love like they were contestants in a competition. All of that is obvious. All of that is clear. But there's a part of me, a small, stubborn part, that still doesn't think testing them was wrong. That still thinks, if they really loved me, wouldn't they have stayed? Wouldn't they have fought? Wouldn't they have passed the test? The fact that they both left so quickly suggests they didn't really love me. Suggests I was right to test them. Suggests they failed, not me. Or maybe it suggests I'm still not getting it, still not understanding what I did wrong, still blaming them for my manipulation. My therapist would say it's the second one, that I'm still in denial, still not taking full responsibility, still finding ways to make myself the victim instead of the villain. And she's probably right, but accepting that means accepting that I destroyed two relationships, one marriage and one affair, because I'm fundamentally broken in some way. That's harder than blaming them for not loving me enough. That's harder than saying they failed the test. That's harder than admitting I never should have given the test in the first place. Here's what I've learned, or at least what I'm supposed to have learned. You can't test love. Not really. Not in any meaningful way. Because love isn't something you can measure or evaluate or quantify. It's not something that responds to tests and challenges and obstacles. Real love is trust. It's believing someone without needing proof. It's choosing someone without needing them to prove they're worthy. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't trust either of them enough to just choose. I needed proof. I needed data. I needed them to perform. And that's why I lost them both. Not because they didn't love me, but because I couldn't accept their love without testing it, without challenging it, without making them prove it. And healthy people, good people, sane people, they don't tolerate that. They don't play those games. They don't participate in tests designed to manipulate them. They walk away. They choose themselves. They refuse to prove something that should be taken on faith. And Chris and Jake did exactly that. They both chose their dignity over my test. They both decided I wasn't worth the manipulation. And they were right. I wasn't worth it. Not if being with me meant tolerating that kind of behavior. Not if being with me meant being tested and evaluated and constantly proving myself. No one should have to live like that. No one should be in a relationship where they're constantly being judged and measured and tested. That's not love. That's torture. And I was the one torturing them. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but effectively, because I couldn't just love them. I had to test them. I had to see who loved me more. I had to create a competition where everyone lost, especially me. I planned a date with my husband and my ex as a test. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was the perfect way to make an impossible decision. I thought it would give me clarity. Instead, they compared notes and dumped me. Both of them. Together. United in their decision that I wasn't worth the manipulation. That they both deserved better. And they were right. They did deserve better. They deserved someone who would trust them, who would choose them without testing them, who would love them without needing constant proof. They deserved someone who wasn't me. And now they both have that. They both moved on. They both found people who treat them with respect and honesty and trust, while I'm here, alone, living with the consequences of my test every single day, in this small apartment, in this lonely life, with nothing but regrets and questions. Did I really need to test them? Was there really no other way to choose? Was I really so incapable of just making a decision? The answer to all of those is probably yes. I probably did need to test them. Because I'm broken in some fundamental way that makes me unable to trust, unable to believe, unable to accept love without proof. And that's why I'm alone now. That's why they both left. That's why the test failed, not because they didn't love me enough, but because I loved myself too little, trusted too little, believed too little. I tested them because I didn't think I deserved them without earning them, without proving I was worthy of their love by making them prove they were worthy of mine. And that backwards logic destroyed everything. People ask if I would do it differently, if I could go back, if I would skip the test, if I would just choose one, if I would be honest instead of manipulative. And the answer is, I don't know. I want to say yes. I want to say I've learned. I want to say I understand now that testing people is wrong. But there's still that small voice that says, if they really loved me, they would have stayed. They would have understood. They would have forgiven the test and fought for me anyway. And as long as that voice exists, I don't think I've really learned anything. As long as I believe that real love should withstand any test, any manipulation, any game, I'm not going to be capable of real love myself. As long as I think fighting for me means tolerating my toxicity, I'm going to keep losing people. As long as I can't just trust and choose and love without proof, I'm going to be alone. And maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe that's the consequence of not learning. Maybe that's the price of staying broken. I planned a date with my husband and my ex as a test. They compared notes and dumped me. And I still don't fully understand why that was fair, why that was justified, why I'm the villain. But everyone else does. Chris does, Jake does, my therapist does, everyone who hears this story does, everyone except me. And until I do, until I really, truly understand why testing people who love you is toxic and manipulative and wrong, I'm going to be alone. That's my reality now. That's my consequence. That's what I get for treating love like a competition instead of a choice. 2 men walked away, and they were right to do it. Even if I don't fully accept that yet, even if part of me still thinks they failed the test, even if part of me still thinks I was right to give it. That's the problem. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm alone. Because I still don't get it. Not really. Not in the way I need to. And until I do, this is my life. Alone. Tested by my own tests. Failed by my own standards. Exactly what I deserve, even if I can't fully admit it yet.